Hello, my name is Morgan Meneses-Sheets. I'm a communications consultant with reproductive health rights and justice organizations throughout the country. It's human nature to want to keep our children safe, to want to shield them from scary things in the world. We fast forward the frightening parts of a movie. We want to make sure that they feel protected. So we make sure they wear a bike helmet. We watch them when they climb a tree so they don't fall. But keeping our children safe does not mean keeping them ignorant. We must make sure that our children understand racism, the role that we all play in either challenging or perpetuating bias, and also our responsibility to create a more just world. To not do so is to make our children complicit in violence and oppression. And it's to be derelict in our duty to help to raise people who can challenge the injustices that we are seeing every day and that have existed long before they made the evening news or they got a hashtag. We cannot teach our children to be colorblind. They need to be race conscious. We have to talk to our kids about race. Racism thrives in silence, and too often, white parents have been aggressively silent when it comes to race. Kids pick up on when we avoid a topic, when we don't talk about something, when we don't acknowledge difference or race. They see how we treat people of color, and if we have people of color in our lives, in our families, in our communities, do we build community with people of color? So then why are we surprised when nice, sweet children grow up and reflect unconscious bias against people of color, or grow into adults who harm and blame people of color for violence that's committed against them? It's our job to help our children to understand the world, to be a place they can turn to for questions, to teach them values. We can help our kids to understand racism, to understand and to empower them to advance racial equality and end white supremacy. We can raise our children of color to feel proud of who they are and their right to self-advocate. And we can raise our white children to recognize their duty to stand up and to speak out anytime they see injustice. We can start by telling our kids that yes, we do see skin color and racial identities and difference. For people who are raised themselves without these kinds of discussions about race and discrimination, it can feel intimidating. You might not know where to start. We don't want to say the wrong things, but we have to start somewhere. So we can make sure that we read books about people with different experiences and cultures, people who don't look exactly like our families. We can show our kids there's this great big amazing world and all kinds of different ways to look and be and live and love. We can watch the news with our kids or talk to them about what's going on in the world. Right now, people are protesting. They are rising up in Kentucky, in Minnesota, and all over. We can show them a picture, a protest sign of the beautiful, powerful demonstrations that are happening. And this opens up a discussion about discrimination and equality, about privilege. And maybe the first conversation, we're not talking about white supremacy and respectability politics, but we're laying the foundation. The conversation will look different depending on how old our kids are, but we can and we must talk to our kids about race and about racism. Let's talk about the fact that lots of people look and are different ways. We talk about race and religion. We can talk about people that don't have enough in our communities to open up a discussion about poverty. We can talk about ability and that some people's bodies or minds don't work exactly like ours. If a child says they like a particular skin tone or body type or hair texture more than others, or if they say they don't like something about their own bodies, we don't want to make them feel wrong or bad or shamed. We want to talk to them, ask them questions. Where did that come from? What have they heard that made them think that? Use the words race the words racism so they hear it and they begin to understand that racism exists and that it's hurtful to people around them. Talk about the fact that people are not given the same opportunities, that they're treated badly, and that they are hurt because people who are white think they are better, and that even our government can make it harder for people of color, people who are not white, to be safe, to have enough money, to take care of their families, to see a doctor. Talk about what racism looks like, how it operates, how it harms. We need our kids to understand also the need to question authority. So many school children are told that police are the people to turn to and that they're always safe and good, but that's oversimplified. They're not safe for all communities and all people, and it's dangerous to not be willing to talk about the complicated topics. So how do we begin a conversation about police violence? Well, maybe we talk about how the people who make the rules, our government, and the people who are supposed to make sure we follow the rules, our police, can also be racist. That they also grow up in a world where they are told that white is better and that that is wrong and that that causes great harm. In my house, we talk a lot about the current administration, which is an unfortunate example of racism and injustice. We talk about how people who were not born here are treated unfairly. We talk about immigrants and immigration. We talk about how people who are black are not treated fairly, how women are not treated equally. So we talk about immigration and racism and sexism. I use the word xenophobia. And no, I don't expect them to pick it up right away, but they need to hear it and begin to understand these concepts, what's going on in the world. Give them the information to start to build on. They'll ask questions if they don't understand, if they're confused, and then they'll have those thoughts to be able to look around the world, to listen, to ask questions, to consider what's going on. When my 6-year-old pushed back on someone in her class saying boys can't wear pink and girls can't be superheroes, that came from a discussion about sexism, that girls are not always treated fairly. When my 9-year-old talked about someone whose skin color looked different than hers, and she talked about things like pink and beige and brown, well, we talked about the words that people would want to use. We talked about race. We talked about how she, being half Filipino, might be treated differently and unfairly. We talked about how black people are treated differently and unfairly. We talked about how people are not always given the same chances in life. And yes, we've read the books about Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr., but we've also talked about how Thanksgiving and Columbus Day are not all as pretty as the picture books. And we've talked about when they come home from school and they tell a story that sounds a little bit like racism or sexism and what they could do and standing up for other people. I know I don't always get it right, I know that. And that's something that white parents will say. They're afraid, it's hard, they're not sure where to start. Well, that's an excuse. And it's an excuse that is hurting people and perpetuating injustice and violence. There are too many resources out there, and we have got to do something. White supremacy depends on white silence. That includes not giving our children the tools and the ability to understand what racism is, what it looks like, and the role and responsibility that we all play in making it better or making it worse. Parents know that these amazing people come to us as their own individuals, but we do get the chance to shape the way that we see the world, to make sure that they understand that difference is to be celebrated and affirmed and respected. And when it is not, we need to say something. We get to help them to respond to the world and shape what the world looks like in the days to come. We can help them to be part of actions to push for different policies, like going to an in-person rally or participating in a virtual action. They can write a letter to their lawmakers, and we can talk to them about how legislation is made and who gets to make decisions and voting. We can take them to vote with us, or right now, those ballots we're filling in at home, show them. Talk to them about what it means, who these people are, why we made our choices. If we're going to make a call to a lawmaker, talk to them about what we're calling about and why. What do we think should change? What's happening right now without that change? We watch a lot of superhero movies in my house, and we talk about the good guys and the bad guys and the good girls and strong women. We talk about how they are willing to fight for what is right. They're willing to fight to make sure people are safe and treated fairly, and how important it is to stand up and do the right thing no matter what. White parents have a chance and a responsibility, and if you haven't already been doing it, you need to now. If you have, thank you, and we can always do more. We have to help our kids to understand racism, to understand oppression, even if that isn't the word we use right now. If they are young, we talk about kindness and fairness, but we have to talk about it. We have to talk to our kids about doing the right thing and speaking out against injustice, about challenging hate and ending racism and violence. People are dying. The least we can do is make sure that our homes are a place where we raise children to stand up, to speak out, and to fight back. It is really the least that we can do.